Hey guys, it's Delphine here. Right now I kind of have a little bit of a cold. I'm feeling pretty crappy, but I'm going to make this video for you guys about whether or not a bearded dragon would be a right pet for you. So I have Freddy out. He's chilling. He's not his brightest because he's not very happy that I took him out. And he hasn't been eating very much because I haven't been giving him too much. As a lot of you know, I've been trying to wean him off of bugs and get him to eat more veggies and fruits and stuff like that. But he's really putting up a fight. He just doesn't. His eating habits are pretty poor. He's gotten in the habit where he doesn't even want to eat if I'm watching him, even if it is bugs. If I hand feed him, he'll eat it, but he's just a weird little mood with food right now. So he's lost a lot of weight, but he's still got his healthy amount of fat that he needs on his edges here. I'm going to be buying him some hornworms to try and get a healthier variety of food for him. Right now he eats mostly just superworms when I do feed him insects, so I wanted to get him a healthier food choice when it comes to insects, since he is eating more insects than he should be at this age, while I'm trying to wean him onto vegetables. So yeah, enough about Freddy. I'm going to get into what you need if you want a bearded dragon. First of all, it's important to know whether a bearded dragon will work with your lifestyle. Bearded dragons can get pretty big, up to 2 feet. Right now, I haven't measured Freddy, but he's pretty long. I'd say around 16 inches. I don't know how much bigger he's going to get because he does have small parents. His dad is 16 inches. And his mom I think is like 19 or 20. But he is going to mature more. Right now he's still got that juvie look. He hasn't quite grown into his own body. So yeah, you have to make sure you have enough space for a bearded dragon. They do grow pretty big. It is mostly tail, but there is quite a big chunk of body to go with that tail when they do grow to their full size. So you have to be prepared for that. Another thing to be prepared for is the supplies and the cost of all that supplies and maintaining your bearded dragon and their supplies. I have a little bit of a PowerPoint here to show you guys. I made this before I got Freddy when I was preparing to get a bearded dragon, just to keep track of all of the finances and stuff that I have to go through. So it's pretty much just all the stuff you're going to need. There are a variety of cages that are available. For a baby that's about 5 to 6 inches, you can start them off in about a 20 gallon long tank, like this one up here. That's what I did. I started Freddy off in a 29 gallon tank. You just have to make sure that you have a screen lid to go on top, not like that, but a screen lid. And you have to have all of your other supplies to go with the cage, such as a heat lamp, and if you have to measure the height of your cage, the taller it is, the higher wattage of bulb you're going to need in order to maintain a nice basking spot for them. So that's something to think about. So the taller the cage you have, the more expensive your light bulb is going to end up being because it will be a higher wattage. You can also get something like this, which is a melamine or like a custom wood cage. These are really nice cages. I ended up building one similar to this for Freddy once he got too big for a smaller cage. But they can be expensive, around $200, even up to $300, depending on who you buy it from and how big it is. The material also plays into it. Melamine is a type of wood that's very popular when it comes to building cages because it has a white coating on both sides already, and it's a pretty sturdy, not too expensive wood. It is pretty pricey though. Not quite as cheap as the wood that I used to build Freddy's cage because that wood was super thin, which was okay because we were building the cage into a metal frame, which meant we didn't have to have such a sturdy material. But if you're buying just a cage, it's going to be made out of a sturdy, thick wood, and so it's going to be a little pricey. Then there's also vision cages, which I think are the most expensive of all of them, but they are the lightest. They're made out of a nice, light plastic. So they're easy to stack, easy to move and carry around. But they are kind of expensive, especially when you get into the sizes you'll need for an adult bearded dragon. But if you want, you can go with that. They usually are decked out with some vents or in places, as you can see, like right here, where you could put a heat bulb and get it closer to the bearded dragon. So that would reduce the cost of your heat bulb because you could use a lower wattage. But like I said, that tends to be the most expensive of cages. Personally, what I would do is for a baby, it's not too expensive to get just a 29 gallon long tank, which is even better than a 20 because it'll last you longer. And you can just, if you get a big enough piece of wood, so it'll give your beauty some elevation to get closer to the heat lamp at the top, everything will work out fine. You're also going to have to consider what substrate to use. After doing a lot of research, I found that the best substrate for babies is just using paper towels or newspaper. You can pretty much get it for free. You probably already have paper towels or newspaper laying around your house, and you just lay it down, and when your baby poops on it, you just grab it all up, throw it away, and put down a new layer. It keeps the babies from getting too much exposure to their own feces, which would cause diseases, especially in younger dragons. You want to make sure they have a nice clean habitat. So using paper towels and newspapers is nice because you can really quickly just clean up and put down a new layer of substrate, new clean layer, and it doesn't cost very much at all. You probably already have the stuff laying around your house. For adult bearded dragons, there are many, many, many different options. Here on this PowerPoint, I said sand or Repti carpet. There are pros and cons to both of those. I've read a lot that Repti carpet, even though it is a nice substrate, there's no chance of your beardy eating it and getting sick. It does maintain a smell. No matter how much you wash it, it does tend to hold on to the smell of your bearded dragon's poop, so that's kind of a downside, especially since bearded dragon poop is really, really bad smelling. And sand you could use with an adult. It's really nice because a lot of beardies like to dig, especially females. Once they get older, they might have periods where they are burdened with eggs, but that are unfertile, so they'll tend to get the need to dig around and lay their eggs in a substrate like sand. Even though they're not fertile eggs, it does happen. So that's nice, except there is a chance that your beardie could eat the sand. While this isn't as much of a problem with adults, it can be with babies. When they eat stuff, it gets clogged in the edges of their stomach lining, and it just causes all sorts of problems. That's why for babies, I would recommend using something like paper towels or newspaper, or Repti carpet if you want. That way, there's no chance that they'll end up eating their substrate because it is just one solid. With adults, you can also use tile. That's what I ended up using for Freddy's bigger cage. It's nice because you can get tile pretty cheap. You can usually buy a single tile for less than $1, and then you lay them down. A lot of tiles come with self-adhesive bottoms, or you can caulk them into the cage. And then it's a really nice substrate because it helps wear down the beardie's toenails, and it isn't loose like sand, so there's no risk of impaction, and it's nice because it does retain some heat from the heat bulb, not so much that it could injure your beardie or burn them, but it is nice that it isn't like super cold all the time, and it does just provide them a little extra heat, and so I think that tiles are pretty nice of a substrate as well. Alright, lighting is very imperative when it comes to owning bearded dragons, and this is where a lot of your money is going to end up going down the drain. Bearded dragons have to have UVB. It's a special type of light that you get from the sun. With the UVB, the bearded dragon absorbs the UVB rays and uses that to take the calcium that they ingest and use it in their body. Without UVB, the calcium just goes through their system and does nothing for them. So it's important to have UVB for your bearded dragon, or no matter how much calcium you give them, they'll end up with a problem like metabolic bone disease because they can't absorb the calcium into their body and use it for what they need to use it for. So what I recommend is the ReptiSun 10.0 UVB bulb. There's also Arcadia is like a really good brand in the UK, but here in the US, ReptiSun you can find most anywhere. If you buy it online, you can usually get a better price than in store. Nearly half or even more than half of the price of a commercial pet store you can find online. I used a I put the prices on here for some of the websites I was looking at. At beardeddragon.co, which is one of the best websites I found for bearded dragon supplies. The Reptisun 10.0 bulb is only about $25, a 24-inch one. At Petco, they had an 18-inch Reptisun 10.0 bulb, which isn't even as big, and it was around $30, and they had marked for the 24-inch would be around $50-some. So you can see this is a really good price when you get it online. And you also need a heat bulb. Your bearded dragon is a reptile, and therefore they do not produce their own internal heat. Therefore they have to get it from an external source, such as a heat bulb. Baby bearded dragons need to maintain a temperature around 100 to 110 max degrees Fahrenheit. So you're going to need a pretty strong heat bulb. I guess I'm going to get into that in a second, but this is another option for UVB. It is a coil bulb, and there has been some problems with coil bulbs in the past. They're supposedly fixed, but I don't think that coil bulbs give off quite as much UVB percentage-wise as the tube fluorescents. So if I were you, I'd probably just stick with the tube fluorescents because it does cover more of the cage as well, while one single coil fluorescent would just cover a single spot. And you want to make sure that no matter where your beardie is in the cage, they're getting UVB. Alright, so next we have to deal with heat. For your bearded dragon, you want to make sure, for a baby at least, that you have a basking spot of about 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The rest of the warm side should be about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So your cage is going to have a warm side and a cool side. That way if your bearded dragon gets too hot, he can go over to the cool side and cool off. If he gets too cool, he can go over to the warm side and warm up. Like I said, you have to have a basking spot, which is a single spot that reaches a maximum of 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And the rest of your warm side should be about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Your cool side should be about 85 degrees Fahrenheit, or around, even down to like 75 degrees Fahrenheit if you can't even get it to be 85. At night, your temperature should not go below 65 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the absolute minimum. That's even a little bit cold. So if you're worried about your temps getting that cold, or if you're worried that they are getting that cold and that's bad for your bearded dragon, go ahead and get a ceramic heat emitter. It emits heat but no light, so it doesn't disturb your bearded dragon during their sleep. A lot of people might say to use infrared heating for a night heating light, but studies have found that the red light emitted actually does disturb your bearded dragon's sleep pattern. They do detect the light and it does keep them awake. So I wouldn't suggest using an infrared heating light. For your normal basking temp, for your normal basking light that is, I would suggest using a Zoo Med basking spot lamp. You can get a 2-bulb value pack, which is very useful. That way, if unexpectedly one of your heat bulbs goes out, you have another to replace it. I had this problem happen before where I only had one, and then I found the heat bulb had gone out, and I had to go out to the store and spend way too much money than I should have on a basking spot lamp, when I should have bought 2 offline and had the other one ready for when mine went out, and then I wouldn't have had to spend so much money. As you can see, beardeddragon.co, the wonderful website, a basking spot lamp, 2-bulb value pack like this is only $11. At Petco, about a single bulb would be about $20. That might be the 2-bulb value pack, but it's really expensive to buy it from a chain pet store. You're better off buying it offline, like I said. So this is very important to your bearded dragon, since they cannot create their own heat. They have to have heat from an external source. So getting this right is very imperative to the health of your bearded dragon. If it's too cold, they can get very sick. If it's too hot, that can also be very dangerous. So it's important that along with your heat bulb that you buy a thermometer, not one of the strip ones that you just stick on like a sticker. Those tend to be very unreliable. They have a huge margin of error. You want to buy one that comes with a little probe that you can stick on the basking spot and get a reading, or one of the ones that are laser, where you can shine it on the basking spot and get an instant reading from the digital thermometer. So you want to get one of those to make sure that all your temperatures are where they should be to ensure the health of your bearded dragon. Alright, your bearded dragon is also going to appreciate having somewhere to hide. Especially babies that are, in the wild, considered prey items. It is their natural instinct to make sure that they are hidden most of the time and that they feel secure, because in the wild, they would just be eaten up by a hawk or a snake. And so it's their natural instinct, and it still is even for domesticated bearded dragons, to hide and feel safe while they're babies. So you can have a cave either on the cool side or the hot side for your bearded dragon to hide in. Freddy has a cave right under his ceramic heat emitter, so when he goes to sleep at night, he's getting that warmth from the ceramic heat emitter because his cage is in the basement and I don't want him to get too cold. So as you can see, buying a pre-made hut can be expensive. Even this little desert hideaway is $15 for this little cave. It was suggested on a few different websites that building your own cage could be even cheaper. Just taking some stones or some bricks and stacking them on top of each other. I did this with some stones that we had from some old fish tanks. I heated them up in the oven to kill all the bacteria that was on them, and then I stacked them together. I'd suggest siliconing the rocks together. Me personally, I was worried that the rocks were a little unstable and I didn't want them falling and crushing my bearded dragon. So I siliconed them together to make a little, it was also a cave and a little elevated area for my bearded dragon to climb up on him. So he appreciated that, and I'm sure your bearded dragon would appreciate it too. The rocks are nice because they'll take in some heat from the heat lamp, but they usually don't get too hot, so it's not a risk of burning your bearded dragon. Unlike some products you can buy that are heated rocks that you plug in, those are dangerous because they continue to heat up and emit heat, and bearded dragons can only detect heat from above. They have a certain eye, as it's called. It's not an actual eye, but that's what it's called, on the top of their head that detects light. And so it's important that any heat source that you use comes from above and not below, like a under tank heater or a heat rock. So yeah, that's a little bit about the dangers of some types of heating sources. It also goes along with housing too, so you want to make sure they have somewhere to hide. Basking is very, very important. I guess I should have mentioned the other things here, but you don't want to have an under tank heat emitter, you don't want to have a heat rock, you just want to have the UVB bulb, which doesn't emit heat, and then a heat bulb. And then, in order to utilize the heat bulb, you need to have a basking spot. This will help your bearded dragon get closer to the heat source. This will also help you in reducing the wattage of bulb that you buy, so you don't have to buy as expensive a bulb. The closer your bearded dragon can get to the bulb, the warmer it'll be. So if you can find a nice, tall piece of wood for them to climb up on and get closer to the bulb, just make sure you check the temperature of the highest spot to make sure it's not too hot. Also, babies, while they love to climb, adults and subadults tend to get a little bit lazier. So once your bearded dragon starts getting older, you might want to look into getting a heat source that's, is a little stronger so that they don't have to climb as high to get as warm. Adults also don't need as high of a basking temperature, so that's also helpful in lowering your wattage. But here's some different options for a basking spot. Max Grapevine Jungle Gym is something you can find at different pet store chains. It usually ranges from about $20 to about $30 for a really huge piece of wood like the one I bought for Freddy. But you can just look around, find one that'll serve your purpose, get your bearded dragon to a nice spot where they can get nice and warm. The one I bought had different levels, similar to this one, where my bearded dragon could either bask away at the top, or there are different levels for him to get a little bit cooler as he went down, but not too cool, so he could still stay warm. And that was nice because he was able to choose what basking temperature he wanted to be at without having to get all the way down on the ground to cool off. Bearded dragons also really, really love hammocks. It might seem a little bit weird, but they tend to be a little bit lazy in nature, and so laying in a nice hammock under a heat lamp is just one of the joys of being a bearded dragon. So my bearded dragon especially has enjoyed his hammock. He likes to lounge in it.
So that would be a nice thing to invest in as well. It's pretty cheap on beardeddragon.co, only about $6. Alright, so now we get into the all-important category